My 15-year-old daughter, Emily, had been complaining of nausea and stomach pain. My husband, James Doss, said, "She's just faking it. Don't waste time or money." I took her to the hospital in secret. The doctor looked at the scan and whispered, "There's something inside her." I could do nothing but scream. The Thompson family's two-story house in a beautiful suburban neighborhood of Richmond symbolized a perfect family from the outside, with its red brick exterior, white window frames, well-maintained lawn, and colorful flower beds. Neighbors considered it a picture-perfect home in every season. Sarah Thompson sighed deeply as she looked at the high school student files spread across the kitchen island counter, a woman of delicate beauty and gentleness. She had worked as a counselor at Albert High School for over 10 years and earned tremendous trust from her students. "Stop bringing student casework home," James Thompson's low, gruff voice interrupted her thoughts. James was a leading real estate developer in the area, respected in the community for his career and charisma. Standing over 6 feet tall, his presence stood out in any room. He wore expensive suits with ease and exuded the confidence of a successful man. "I'm just preparing for tomorrow's meetings," Sarah answered with a smile. "I'll put them away soon." James leaned against the kitchen counter, holding a glass of whiskey. "You're too kind. You sacrifice too much of your time for those troubled kids." Sarah said nothing. James never tried to understand why she cared so deeply for the students he called troubled. "Where's Emily?" James asked. "In her room, I think. She's doing homework," Sarah replied. James frowned. "Shut away again. She's been acting strange lately. Go check her room." Sarah frowned. "She might be busy right now. And she's a 15-year-old girl. She needs privacy too. There's no privacy in this house." James's voice was cold, leaving no room for discussion. "Go check on her." Sarah nodded silently, putting away her papers and choosing to obey to avoid an argument with her husband. She had long believed that maintaining peace in the home was her responsibility. Emily's door was closed. Sarah knocked gently. "Emily, may I come in?" When there was no response, she opened the door quietly. In the dimly lit room, Emily was lying on her bed, wearing a plain, simple t-shirt and sweatpants. She was looking at her smartphone but immediately darkened the screen when her mother entered. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked worriedly. Instead of answering, Emily curled up. Her long brown hair covered her face, hiding her expression. "My stomach hurts," she said. Sarah sat on the edge of her daughter's bed. "That's the third day. Do you have a fever?" She reached out to touch Emily's forehead, but her daughter pulled away. "No fever. I just don't feel well." "What about food? Do you want to eat something? I could heat up some soup." Emily shook her head slightly. "Not hungry." Sarah looked around the room. The walls, once decorated with bright colors and photos of friends, were now bare. Her once cheerful and outgoing daughter had changed into someone else entirely in recent months. Her grades had dropped. She no longer spent time with friends, and she stayed shut in her room at home. "How was your English test last week?" "Got a C," Emily answered vaguely. "A C? You always got A's in English. What happened?" "Don't know. Just couldn't concentrate." Sarah felt Emily's body tense as James's footsteps echoed in the hallway. He stood in the doorway with his arms crossed, saying, "She's sick again." Irritation seeped into his voice. Sarah looked up at James. Her stomach hurts. "It's been going on for days now. Teenage make-believe," James said callously. "She just wants attention. Don't use illness as an excuse for your falling grades." "James, she's really enough." He cut off his wife's words. "Don't coddle her. When I was her age, I didn't miss school even when I had a fever. Teach her toughness." Emily remained silent, facing the wall. Sarah placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder, but Emily didn't move. "You're going to school tomorrow." "Understood," James commanded. Emily just nodded slightly. After James left the room, Sarah gently stroked her daughter's hair. "If you're really worried, I can take you to the doctor. Dad won't allow it." Emily's voice trembled. Sarah searched for words. "We could go secretly." Emily finally looked at her mother. Her eyes were empty, their former sparkle gone. "It's okay. It's just a stomachache." Deep down, Sarah felt this wasn't just a stomachache. It was something in her daughter's eyes, an unspeakable sadness and fear. But she couldn't see the cause. "You can tell me anything," Sarah whispered. "There's nothing to tell." Emily turned away. "Leave me alone." Sarah left the room with heavy steps. Downstairs, James had turned on the television and started watching the news. He had entered Emily's life 5 years ago when she was only 10, after Sarah's former husband, David, died in a car accident. James offered them stability and protection. 2 years later, he formally adopted Emily, becoming her legal father. The relationship had been good at the beginning, but something began to change. It started with small changes: Emily's rebellious attitude, James's increasing strictness. Sarah thought it was just a rite of passage through adolescence, but now her intuition told her something more serious was lurking beneath the surface. When she entered the living room, James gave her a cold look. "Don't take her to any doctor. It's a waste of money. Don't use insurance for such make-believe illnesses." Sarah nodded quietly. The next morning, she watched from the living room window as Emily boarded the school bus. Her shoulders were slumped, and fatigue emanated from her entire body. She hadn't eaten breakfast, and her face remained pale. I wonder if forcing her to go to school was really the right thing to do. Sarah muttered to herself. "Of course it was," James said, appearing behind her. Already dressed in his business suit, he was ready to leave for work. "If you coddle her, she'll always remain weak. Toughness requires strictness." Sarah nodded quietly. She knew that questioning her husband's disciplinary philosophy would lead to a lengthy argument. James was about to leave for a 3-day business trip, so at least the house would be quiet during that time. "Keep a close eye on Emily while I'm gone. Always know what she's doing," James emphasized before leaving. "Don't forget to check her phone." Sarah felt a slight disgust but answered, "Yes, I understand." She had always felt uncomfortable with James interfering with Emily's privacy, but she had partly gone along with it under the pretext of parental responsibility. After James left, Sarah headed to her workplace, Albert High School. Waiting for her in the counseling office was her colleague and close friend, Laura Martinez. "Sarah, you look terrible," Laura said worriedly. "Another all-nighter with casework." Sarah managed a tired smile. "No, I'm worried about Emily." They moved to the back of the office where other staff couldn't hear them. Sarah confided in Laura about Emily's behavior over the past few months: declining grades, thinning friendships, and especially the concerning recurring illnesses. "James says it's just make-believe. He won't even let me take her to a doctor." Laura's expression darkened. "What? That's strange. It's about her health. He calls it a waste of money, but I think Emily is really sick: nausea, stomach pain, loss of appetite, and more than anything, there's no light in her eyes." Laura took Sarah's hands. "Listen, Sarah, you've helped hundreds of children as a counselor, but it's strange that you can't help your own daughter now. A child's health comes first. You should act on your own judgment." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. Laura's words expressed the voice deep within her own heart. Without James's permission, Sarah began. "James is away on a business trip, right?" Laura said with a serious expression. "That's your best chance. Take Emily to the hospital. As a mother, that's your right and duty." That afternoon, Sarah called Emily's school and had her dismissed early, citing illness. "Mom, what's going on?" Emily looked surprised to see Sarah waiting at the school's main entrance. "We're going to the doctor," Sarah said with determination. Emily anxiously looked around. "But Dad's on a business trip, and your health comes first." Something flickered in Emily's eyes for a moment but quickly disappeared. She nodded silently and got into her mother's car. Sarah drove not to the local hospital, but to St. Joseph Medical Center in the next town. She wanted to avoid the risk of being seen by James's acquaintances. Her hands trembled slightly as she presented her insurance card at the reception. "Miss Thompson, what are your symptoms?" Dr. Nancy Chen, a young female physician, asked Emily kindly. Emily looked at her mother. "Mum, I'd like to talk to the doctor alone." Sarah flinched momentarily. Pain that her daughter was trying to exclude her and anxiety that there was something she couldn't say squeezed her heart. However, she understood the importance of respecting her daughter's wishes. "Of course," Sarah smiled. "I'll wait outside." Alone in the waiting room, Sarah couldn't calm her racing heart. Various possibilities crossed her mind about what Emily might be telling the doctor and why she couldn't speak in front of her mother. Drugs, alcohol, or worse. She tried to push away the frightening possibilities that came to mind. 45 minutes later, the examination room door opened. Dr. Chen's expression was stern, and Emily's eyes were red as if she had been crying. Mrs. Thompson, Dr. Chen addressed Sarah. I need to speak with you. Your daughter needs some tests. I'd like to conduct several tests today, if that's all right with you. Sarah couldn't hide her distress. Tests. What kind of tests? Blood tests. The doctor paused for a moment as if choosing her words. And an ultrasound. Ultrasound. An ominous feeling spread through Sarah's chest. Is it something serious? Dr. Chen maintained her professional expression. I can't say anything until we see the test results. We'll have the results by tomorrow. Could you come back tomorrow evening? Sarah looked at Emily. Her daughter was staring at the floor, silently crying. Of course, Sarah answered. Whatever my daughter needs. A heavy silence hung between them in the car on the way home after the tests. Sarah tried to speak several times but couldn't find the words. Mum, Emily suddenly spoke. Her voice was trembling. I'm scared. Sarah pulled the car to the shoulder for a moment, then hugged her daughter tightly. It's all right, Emily. Whatever happens, I'm here for you. We'll get through this together. Emily sobbed in her mother's arms. As Sarah rubbed her daughter's back, she mentally prepared herself for whatever truth would be revealed tomorrow. She was determined to be strong for her daughter, no matter how painful the truth might be. When they returned home, Emily immediately shut herself in her room. As Sarah prepared dinner, she thought about how they needed to go to the hospital and return before James came back tomorrow. The next afternoon, Sarah ended her last counseling session at Albert High School. The clock showed 3:45. James will call at 5. I need to be back from the hospital and at home with Emily by then, she thought anxiously as she grabbed her bag. Sarah, Laura stopped her. Are you okay? Sarah exhaled shallowly. I don't know, but we're about to find out the truth, whatever happens. I'm here for you. Laura embraced her shoulder. Call if you need anything. I'll come right away. Sarah nodded gratefully, then hurried to the parking lot. At the school's main entrance, she saw Emily already waiting. She looked even paler than yesterday, her shoulders slumped. Once in the car, Emily stared silently out the window. Sarah wanted to say something but couldn't find the right words. Instead, she quietly started the car. When they arrived at the street, Joseph Medical Center parking lot, Sarah could hear Emily's breathing grow ragged. She parked the car and turned off the engine. But neither of them moved to get out. Emily. Sarah turned quietly toward her daughter. I don't know what's happening, but I promise you one thing, no matter what. I love you, and I'll protect you. We'll get through this together. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. Instead, she just nodded slightly. Inside, the hospital was bright white with a smell of disinfectant in the air. After checking in, they were escorted to Dr. Nancy Chen's office. The doctor stood up with a serious expression when she saw them. Mrs. Thompson, Miss Emily, please sit down. She indicated chairs on the other side of her desk. A strange tension hung in the examination room. Dr. Chen stared at her computer screen in silence for a few seconds. Then, after taking a deep breath, she turned to Emily and Sarah. The test results are in, Dr. Chen said quietly. Her voice had the typical calmness of a physician, but clear concern showed in her eyes. After looking at Emily's blood tests and ultrasound results together, she hesitated for a moment. In your stomach. Sarah's heart began to race. Time seemed to stop. Emily is pregnant. About 12 weeks along. The sound of blood rushing roared in Sarah's ears. A cry escaped her lips, seeming to come from so far away she barely recognized it herself. No, she couldn't find words. Emily covered her face with both hands, bent forward, and broke down crying. Sarah automatically put her arms around her daughter, but she herself was trembling. I understand how you feel, Doctor, Chen said quietly. This is an extremely difficult situation. Emily is only 15. In Sarah's mind, countless questions whirled. How? When? And the most terrifying question, who? Sarah forced out from the back of her throat. Who did this to you? Emily couldn't answer, just kept crying. Dr. Chen stood up and said quietly, let's talk in another room. A nurse will stay with Emily. Sarah nodded vaguely. Though she didn't want to leave Emily, she understood the need to calm down. A nurse entered the examination room and gently placed her hand on Emily's shoulder. Sarah stood up weakly and followed Dr. Chen, entering a small consultation room. The doctor closed the door and faced Sarah. First, take a deep breath, she said quietly. Sarah did as told, inhaling a shaky breath. In situations like this, there are various options, Dr. Chen continued. There's still time, but whatever choice you make, Emily's mental care takes priority. Sarah finally found her voice. I don't understand. She hardly goes out. She didn't have a boyfriend. Just back and forth between school and home. Miss S. Thompson. Dr. Chen's voice softened. In my conversation with Emily, a very concerning situation has come to light. I've called in a social worker. She needs to talk with Emily in more detail. Sarah's blood ran cold. A social worker? Why? Emily's situation. The doctor seemed to be choosing her words. May involve legal issues. Legal. Sarah repeated the word, and suddenly a horrifying possibility arose in her mind. Was Emily raped? Her voice trembled. Dr. Chen didn't answer directly. Social worker Tracy Williams has arrived. After she speaks with Emily, we'll talk, the three of us. Sarah was left in the consultation room with trembling legs. 10 minutes felt like an hour. In her mind, various terrifying possibilities appeared and disappeared. Thinking about the fear and loneliness Emily might have experienced was heartbreaking. The door was knocked on, and a woman entered. She introduced herself with a calm expression. Miss S. Thompson. I'm Tracy Williams. I'm a social worker with Child Protective Services. Emily, Sarah asked with a trembling voice. She's with Dr. Chen. She's safe. Tracy encouraged her to sit down. Miss S. Thompson. What I'm about to tell you is very difficult. You'll need your strength. Sarah nodded firmly. I spoke with Emily. At first, she didn't want to talk, but I explained that we needed to know the truth for her safety and to provide appropriate support. Tracy said quietly, Emily says she has been sexually abused for about a year. For a year. Sarah's expression showed disbelief. By whom? A teacher? A coach? Tracy exhaled deeply. Your husband, James Thompson. Sarah's world collapsed. She shook her head violently. No, that's a lie. James is her father. He even adopted her. He wouldn't do such a thing, Miss S. Thompson. Tracy said quietly but firmly. In our experience, it's very rare for children to lie about such serious allegations, especially when they can provide detailed explanations. But Sarah's voice was hoarse. Why didn't Emily tell me? Emily did tell us she was afraid of hurting you. She said James threatened that if she spoke, it would hurt her mother and that no one would believe her. Tracy's voice was gentle. Furthermore, she herself didn't want to break the family. Intense pain shot through Sarah's chest. Guilt for failing to protect her daughter and anger toward her husband overwhelmed her. Her body was shaking uncontrollably. We need to report this to the police now, Tracy said. Ensuring Emily's safety is the top priority. James is on a business trip. He's coming back tomorrow, Sarah answered mechanically. That's good, Tracy said. You and Emily need to move to a safe place. Do you have relatives or trusted friends you could stay with? Laura's face appeared in Sarah's mind. Yes, I do. Excellent. Tracy smiled gently. A police officer will record statements from you and Emily. After that, you'll move to a safe location. Meanwhile, an arrest warrant for James will be issued. Though Sarah's mind was in chaos, one thing was clear. She had to protect Emily now that she knew her husband's true nature. All her maternal instincts had awakened to protect her daughter. Let me see Emily. She stood up. Tracy opened the door and escorted Sarah to Dr. Chen's examination room. Emily sat in a chair, her eyes red and swollen. When Sarah entered, Emily shrank back fearfully. Emily, Sarah said with a trembling voice. I'm sorry Mom couldn't protect you. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes again. I wanted to tell you, but I was scared. Sarah rushed over and hugged her daughter tightly. They cried in each other's arms. For a long time, no words were necessary. That embrace contained all their love, apologies, and understanding. It's going to be okay now, Sarah whispered as she stroked her daughter's hair. I won't let anyone hurt you anymore. Mom will definitely protect you. Sarah woke up in the guest room of Laura's house. For a moment, she didn't know where she was, but seeing Emily sleeping beside her, she remembered yesterday's events were real. She quietly got up and looked around the room, where morning sunlight streamed through the window. The hours at the police station had been like a nightmare. Emily's testimony was recorded. and Sarah herself kept answering questions about the details of life with James, changes in Emily's behavior, and the signs she had missed or refused to notice. I should have seen it, Sarah whispered to herself. Why didn't I notice? Don't blame yourself. Turning around, she saw Laura standing in the doorway. She approached with 2 coffee cups. Thanks for being up so early, Sarah said as she accepted a cup. Did you sleep? Laura asked gently. Sarah shook her head. Just fragments. But Emily seemed exhausted. She's sleeping soundly. Laura sat on the edge of the bed. The police called. James was arrested in Chicago, where he was on his business trip. This morning, Sarah took a deep breath. I'll tell Emily later. She still needs rest. Laura's expression clouded. There's one more thing. When the police searched James's belongings, they found inappropriate photos of Emily on his mobile phone. The blood drained from Sarah's face. Her hands shook, nearly dropping the coffee cup. Those photos, when were they taken? The police didn't give details. But apparently they span quite a long period. Laura answered quietly. A long silence followed. In Sarah's heart, a flame of anger was growing. Her affection for James had transformed into guilt for not protecting her daughter and intense hatred toward him. Why didn't I notice? Sarah asked herself again. I'm a counselor. I deal with children's problems every day. Families of victims often don't notice until the end, Laura answered, especially when the perpetrator is respected and trusted. James was a role model in the community. No one suspected. That afternoon, Detective Carter visited Laura's house. A middle-aged black man with a calm but firm demeanor. Miss S. Thompson, he addressed Sarah. The interrogation of suspect James Thompson has begun. He is currently denying all charges. Sarah couldn't contain her anger, despite the evidence. Despite Emily's testimony and the photos, this is a normal response, Detective Carter explained calmly. However, the evidence is very strong. DNA testing will also be conducted. Emily came downstairs. She seemed tense seeing the detective but sat next to Sarah. Dad, James, Emily asked in a small voice. He's been arrested. Sarah took her daughter's hand. He can't hurt you anymore. Detective Carter smiled kindly at Emily. Miss Emily, you are very brave. It took great courage to tell the truth. Thanks to you, justice will prevail. Emily raised her face slightly. In her eyes, a light that hadn't been seen for a long time began to return. Have you learned anything about James's motives from the interrogation? Sarah asked in a trembling voice. Detective Carter took a deep breath. It's still early, but his behavior pattern shows typical characteristics of a controller. He seems to have used his position as a stepfather to satisfy his sense of ownership and desire to control Emily. The detective continued. Also, initial interviews with a psychologist suggest that the suspect had strong jealousy toward Emily's biological father. It's possible that as Emily entered puberty and began to resemble her real father, it triggered him. Sarah couldn't stop trembling. She was beginning to understand what kind of man she had chosen and trusted. James's controlling attitude, excessive interference with Emily, unnecessary criticism of her former husband, everything now appeared in a new light. What do we do now? Sarah said, as if telling herself. As next steps, Detective Carter explained in a practical tone. I recommend applying for a protection order and starting divorce proceedings. It's also important for you and Emily to receive professional counseling. Sarah looked at Emily. About the pregnancy, tears welled up in Emily's eyes again. Detective Carter quietly stood up, saying, I'll step out for a moment, and left the room with Laura. When mother and daughter were alone, Sarah took both of Emily's hands. Whatever choice you make, I'm on your side. Remember that. Emily answered through tears. I don't want to have the baby. Every day, I would remember. Sarah hugged her daughter tightly. I understand. I respect your choice. That night, after Emily had fallen asleep, Sarah sat across from Laura in the kitchen. I can't go back to the house, Sarah said quietly. There. Everything reminds me of James. You can stay here for a while. Laura held her friend's hand. Until you take your next step. Determination shone in Sarah's eyes. Emily and I need a fresh start. It will take time for her wounds to heal, but we'll get through this together. Laura nodded. You're a strong mother, Sarah. There will be many difficult things ahead. The trial will be painful too, but you and Emily will surely build a new life. On a cold February morning, Sarah and Emily climbed the courthouse steps. Today was James Thompson's final sentencing day. Ready? Sarah asked, holding her daughter's hand. Emily nodded. Since that day 4 months ago, she had gradually changed. She had received professional counseling, participated in support groups, and, above all, the new bond built with her mother had supported her. Inside the courtroom, all was quiet. When James was brought to the defendant's seat, Sarah saw him for the first time in months. The husband, who had once been full of dignity and confidence, was gone. Instead, there was a man with a haggard face and empty eyes. James had initially denied all charges. However, Emily's DNA test confirmed his paternity, and the photos and messages discovered on his phone were irrefutable evidence. After the preliminary hearing, he eventually agreed to a plea deal. Still, Emily chose to testify in court. She wanted to give courage to other children in similar situations by sharing her experience. Defendant James Thomas Thompson, Judge Margaret Saunders said in a solemn voice, "You have pleaded guilty to sexual abuse of a minor, possession of child pornography, and incest." The judge looked sternly at James. "This is an extremely despicable crime that has inflicted permanent wounds on the victim's life. Your act of using your position and authority to abuse a child you should have protected deserves the harshest condemnation." A heavy silence fell over the courtroom. "This court sentences you to 25 years in prison. Possibility of parole begins after 18 years. Sarah embraced Emily's shoulders. Between them flowed relief and a sense that one chapter had ended. Outside the courthouse, spring sunshine greeted them. 3 weeks ago, they had left this town and moved to a small town called Cedarville, 100 miles away. Sarah had secured a position as a counselor at a local school, and Emily had begun attending a new school. "Mom," Emily suddenly said, "I want to speak at the support group about my experience." Sarah looked at her daughter in surprise. "Really? That's a very brave decision." Emily smiled slightly. "It might help someone," the counselor said. "Silence only protects the perpetrator." Sarah hugged her daughter. Her heart was filled with pride and love. This past year had been hellish for them, but through that suffering, their bond had grown stronger than ever. As they got into the car, Sarah thought, a true family isn't about blood relations, but about relationships where people protect and respect each other. The road ahead would certainly not be smooth, but they would move forward together, one step at a time, toward a new life.